Hello. Can you hear me? If you can't, if you can hear me, don't say anything. Right. Well, this is. I was hoping for more to turn out. We had, I think, 7 last week. Hopefully, some more will join. But I'm going to do this live stream anyway, and people can watch it, listen to it. I'll put it on the Internet Archive probably next month. I'm going to talk tonight about how I came to start the Full Slope timeline. First, I would like to mention something about what was discussed last week. 3 of us now. So 3 of you. Hello, guys. Oh, 2. 1. Oh, no. This is too much. We were talking last week about Christine Blasey Ford and Kavanagh, of course. It was a big story. For those of you who are interested, there's a guy named Ali Alexander. He's a regular vlogger. How can I put it? He's something like a Christian Armageddonist. So I looked at some of the other stuff. It's really weird. But, and this is a massive but, he said he's read the book written by, was it Judge? That guy Judge, who was a friend of Kavanagh, and he's concluded that the vagueness of Blasey Ford used, her vagueness, and stuff from the. He says that she must have read that book, and she's incorporated. She didn't know where the house was, so she incorporated that into her nonsense. It's also coming out, of course, that she appears to have lied about the reason she had 2 front doors. With a bit about her being afraid of flying, that was exposed. That was a ruse to because they didn't want her to testify, or to delaying tactic, basically. And there's a lot come out now. I've yet to evaluate it, but my opinion, as I share Ali's opinion, that Christine Blasey Ford made up everything. She made it all up for whatever reason. I don't believe there's any great conspiracy there, but obviously, she contacted the Democrats. So I'm yawning, isn't it you? I'm taking a painkiller a bit later than I usually do. Spent most of the afternoon crashed out. The belief is his belief, and the belief I share. He's done an excellent analysis. Is that she made it all up? Say for whatever reason, that she approached the Democrats, and of course they'll jump at this. I do hope there's a thorough investigation. At the end of the day, she's prosecuted for something, because the treatment of Kavanagh was absolutely outrageous. And this is a guy who's basically a choir boy. So anyway, check out this guy, Ali Alexander. No relation to me. He's an American. He's on YouTube, and he's on Twitter, Periscope. I don't use Periscope. Let's stop yawning. And I'm sure you'll find, like me, you'll find his analysis convincing. Right. How did I come to start the International Forced Rape timeline? I grew up in the 1960s, and I was always from quite an early age. I was a true crime buff, so I used to read about not rape so much, but murder and I don't know if you remember them. Well, if you're as ancient as me, you might remember them. The magazine True Crime and Real Detective and stuff. The front cover would usually be some scantily dressed damsels or a guy in a threatening pose. looked sort of semi-pornographic. But when you open it up, it was there were full in-depth reports with crime scene photographs written in a professional manner about various murders and things. I mean, mostly American slanted, but there was English stuff as well, and I think various other countries. So I was always into that. Growing up in the 1960s, I knew what rape was, obviously, but to me, a rape is a violent crime. It's a guy forcing himself on a woman, usually a strange man, or a woman he doesn't know, or maybe a woman he knows slightly. And violence is involved. I mean, because women don't lie back and enjoy it. Women do resist if they're attacked by big men. So for me, rape was a violent crime, and it's the idea that it would be difficult to prove is I mean, I've never seen this, because the cuts and bruises speak for themselves. When I was about 18, I was in the canteen at work with an older guy who I remember must have been about 40 something, and we were talking about something I don't know, and somehow death or murder came up, and rape, and he said, off the top of his head, just like this, rape is worse than murder. And I asked him, how can rape be worse than murder? And he said, the psychological effects of rape. Well, what are psychological effects of murder? You don't feel anything anymore. I thought he was talking nonsense. I still do. Even with, I mean, I don't want to get. This isn't autobiographical. I don't want this to be an autobiography, but many people contemplate suicide. Some of us attempt it. Recently, Anthony Bourdain committed suicide at the age of 64. There's a lovely young girl, Ellie Souter, committed suicide on her 18th birthday over an absolute triviality. So, I mean, people do, there are things which might seem worse than murder at the time, but it's complete insanity. About that time, I used to read. Books by. I was a great fan of Dennis Wheatley. Oh dear, I remember. I read nearly 30 of his books when I was younger, novels, and there's one I remember, The Strange Story of Linda Lee, which is about a sort of fairly naive sort of country girl. She meets a much older guy. He offers her a job, and eventually she becomes his mistress. And she says she was raped when she was young. It turned out to be more a bit of a case of regret sex. And he says to her, "My dear, there's no way a woman can be raped." And he points out that all a woman has to do if a guy is raping her is to grab hold of his, and squeeze really hard. And the guy becomes totally emasculated. Well, yeah, I mean, much of the time it isn't that simple, but in the book she ends up somehow in a brothel she's kidnapped to take her to a brothel in America, and this thug, she's told somebody's trying to break her in, and a Negro, as it happens, He's on top of a big guy, and somehow she grabs his nuts, and as he tries to punch her in the face, she's somehow, because he's so much bigger, she gets her teeth into his neck and bites like hell, bites into his jugular vein and kills him. That is complete. I mean, bearing in mind that's a novel, but exaggeration or not, that to me is a fairly realistic scenario, because say most cases women do fight back. In 1976, a film called Lipstick was released, starring the gorgeous Margot Hemingway. Tragic Margot Hemingway, Thames, died young. I watched this film. I didn't realise at the time. I thought it was, but now I recognise it for what it is: feminist propaganda. She plays the part of a model in sunny California, and she's the face of a brand of lipstick. She invites a guy. She lives with her younger sister. They've been orphaned or something. She invites a guy into her home for totally innocuous reasons, and while there, he rapes her. He's finishing off the job when her sister walks in, so it's caught bang to rights. She does the right thing. She reports it immediately. She's bruised, she's cut, furniture, knocked over, and he comes to court, and Anne Bancroft plays the. If I can find this, Anne Bancroft plays the district attorney, and let's have a look at this. And she gives us a speech. No, I'll just play this and see what you think of it.
Mr. Stewart is in jail, but we can only keep him there for 48 hours. Then he's got to be released unless we decide to prosecute. And we won't decide to prosecute unless you decide to testify. Now, do you understand that?
Well, you should. You should, sure. She'll press charges.
Good.
Do you think I should testify?
Yes, of course I think you should testify. You've been raped. Listen, Cole. Every human being has the right of simple consent. Even women. But I must tell you something. If you plan to go ahead with this, you better be prepared to be abused again in court.
What do you mean?
I mean that his lawyer is going to try to terrify you, degrade you, control you, humiliate you. Why do you think there are only 10,000 rapes reported every year in California?
Only?
Out of no less than 50,000 committed. What is it, Mr. Edison? You want to ask me something?
Well, yes, I do. What chance is there the rapist will actually go to prison?
2 out of 100 serve time.
So, even if Chris goes through all that, there's no guarantee.
Never again.
I mean, that is the most outrageous feminist propaganda. To begin with, what happened in the film? She was actually, I've just finished the film. She was actually torn to shreds in court, and the guy was found not guilty. Then he comes after her sister, and she kills him, and it's very brief scene at the end where she's acquitted of murder, justifiable homicide, something. But it's absolutely outrageous. To begin with, the very worst thing any lawyer can do, be it a defense lawyer or a prosecution lawyer, is to humiliate a witness. Now, if a witness is lying, lying outrageously, then yeah, okay, humiliation can even be made fun of. But if a woman claims to have been raped and to absolutely destroy her on the witness stand, what's that going to do to the jury? What's it going to do to the judge? Absolute nonsense. And the idea of 2 out of every 100 serving time is absolute. These feminist propaganda gone mad. Absolutely absurd. A couple of years before that was a similar film, I forget it off now. It was starring Elizabeth Montgomery, who was a very fine actress. And that was on a similar thing. I only saw it a few years ago, actually. But it was on the same theme. This time it's a housewife who, the guy gives her a ride home from a pottery class or something, bluffs his way and rapes her. She doesn't report it. Then he comes back there shortly and rapes her again in the car park. Somehow he got in the back of her car and he's hiding in her car. And she's trying to get away from him, and they end up on the floor of the underground car park. And the guy comes by and witnesses it. So it's called Banks of Rights. And it comes to court, and the witness is made to look uncertain, and it's just utter propaganda. I didn't pay much attention after that. So I believe the ludicrous statistics. I didn't pay much attention after that until 1980. At the time, I'd heard of. I mean, I was living in Leeds at the time, which is I don't know what it is now. It was a hotbed of radical feminism, second wave feminism it was then, and there was also the Yorkshire Ripper killings were the late 1970s, 80s. So that was. I mean, there was a lot of outrage over that. I was actually stopped one night walking home on suspicion of being the Yorkshire Ripper. I was carrying a bag, and the copper jumped out of the shadows and he asked me to open the bag, and he jokingly said, "No ballpoint hammers." What I did notice was that there were maybe 3 or 4 press reports of false rape cases. I haven't been able to find them. I didn't take that much of an interest then. But on August 20th, 1980, I had a letter read out on Radio 1 about it was a phone-in about rape. I doubt very much the letter is extant or it was read out by a man. But there were two letters laid out, one from me and another from a man, Gina, who also lived in Leeds. That's the link. Then I really didn't think. Again, I didn't think much about rape at all until the 1990s. The late 80s. But all about 9. Well, I met Chris Tame. I first met Chris in the early 80s briefly when he was working in Libertarian Bookshop. But I was hooked up with him big time. He died in 2006. Very tragic. He was only 56. Died from a particularly aggressive form of bone cancer. I could talk for hours about Chris. He was a massive intellect. There's actually a library in Czech Republic named after him. Now his library was sent there. But one thing I was talking to him about was we're talking about I think statistics or something unrelated to rape, and rape statistics came. I couldn't believe those, and he said this was due to feminists brainwashing women on campus, making them believe they've been raped. I found that I didn't laugh at him, but I thought it was a really silly thing to say. But here is a fairly contemporaneous, from 97, sometime after we had that talk. This is from the Gainesville Sun. 40 women at the University of Florida reported being raped during the first 6 months of 1996, said Maggie Gerard, coordinator of the University Police Department. But only one filed charges. 40! 40! That is absolutely absurd. I mean, how do you define rape? It's ludicrous. I think it was in 1999, is it? Let's have a look. I'll put the link up for you. Yeah, 1999. In 1999, I had a letter published in SA Times, which South Africa Times, which is a letter published in a newspaper published in London about well, from South African news from South Africa's perspective, and it was rape statistics ludicrous, and I said. I didn't know. I'll read it. It's on the front page of the issue dated October 27. You quote government figures which claims raping every 17 seconds in South Africa. This is ludicrous, as a little mathematics will show. There are 31,536,000 seconds in 1 year. Divided by 17, this makes 1,855,058. 58. So about 30 million females in South Africa. That means that 1 female in 7 will be raped every year. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. In I think it's 2002. What's this? Look at this. This is another letter I published. April 2000. I had a letter published. Alleged rapists will lose that right. Just about sort of defence of due process. And another letter, 2000. That one was published in my local in a local newspaper. This one, letter to various newspapers provide law reform. No, that wasn't published. 2006. There was sometime after Chris Tame died. There was something else that. This is very personal, so I mean, it's something with which I wasn't connected at the time, but I believed at the time to be true. But in 2008, I realised the truth, and I began taking a more of an interest in false rape and delusions and things. I'd been reading I'd read Thomas Sars sometime before that. I found him in the 1990s when I was researching homosexuality. Exposed the myth of the scam of mental illness. Around about April 2011, I got an email from a guy named Silverberg, who was, I think, the managing editor for the Digital Journal in Canada. It's still going now. It was an invitation to become a digital journalist, and I'd signed up with Digital Journal a couple of years earlier just to comment on an article. They got this out of the blue. He said, "We pay you, etc." So that's why I give it a try. I ended up writing nearly 2,000 articles. If you include the blogs, it was just over 2,000. About 2010 something, over 2,000 anyway. My first article was about. It was a review of a TV program about Thompson and Venables, mostly Venables. For those of you who are not based in the UK or crime buffs, Robert Thompson and John Venables were two 10-year-old boys who committed one of the most shocking crimes ever. They kidnapped a 2-year-old boy from a Merseyside shopping centre and murdered him in a horrific fashion. Venables has been back in the news twice, including quite recently. He's back in prison again. He was found to have downloaded from the dark web a manual explaining how to kidnap a young girl. So it's fair to say that he was probably planning to kidnap and murder a child, another child. Absolutely horrible. Now, Digital Journal has been called a scam. I was finally kicked off it for being too politically incorrect, and I got robbed by them as well. They owed me money which I didn't pay. Yes, it is a scam because I mean, you start off, you're getting paid. We can't make a living at it, but I got one time I think $168 for contributing quite a lot of articles in 1 month. Then it goes right down. But I'm not going to slag it off because it led to bigger and greater things. I wrote lots of articles about that, many of them non-controversial. I mean, I wrote an obituary for John Lord. one for SARS. I did reviews of films and soap operas, and wrote about poker, and there was the poker domains were seized. So I wrote sort of a civil rights perspective there, the American war on gambling. Wrote but some historical stuff and financial stuff. But I did write quite a few articles about false rape. There's one, and about real rape. I wrote one called, I think, Frightened Little Women. I wrote one about Landon Gambill, who's a student who accused a boyfriend of rape, her ex-boyfriend, and one contributor, Greta McLean, she wrote an article about it. It was a student threatened with expulsion after admitting she was raped. I looked into it, and of course it was a complete bunk. Gamble is clearly a head case. And what happened was, after her relationship with her boyfriend finished, somebody she knew before college, before they were both at college, she accused him of raping her multiple times. I've got a clip of that. Let me see if I can just play her parroting that. Here it is.
I was raped numerous times by my boyfriend, and the university is aware of that, but he's still back on campus.
I don't know if you can hear that. It's a bit low. Let's turn it up a bit. Oh no, I can't turn it up. It's she said she was raped numerous times by her boyfriend. Well, I'm sorry, but if a guy rapes you, go to the police. Now, if she doesn't go to the police and he says sorry, is she going to give him a second chance, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth? At some point, you have to say this woman is consenting, and I would say that she was consenting all the way through. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, this stuff. Men's lives are trashed over this sort of nonsense. Anyway, I wrote quite a lot of articles for Digital Journal. I did a review of I Never Said Yes. What's this one here? Dedicated article on false rape. Let's have a look at this. This is the latest false rape roundup. Yeah, it's that included a guy named what's his name? Thomas. I think Thomas something. I guess Thomas Ainsworth, who was actually convicted. That wasn't a false allegation; it was a miscarriage of justice. He was convicted of raping. He was convicted of being a serial rapist. He wasn't. The women were raped, but it wasn't him. And I did a big time. My first timeline was the first proper timeline. The first timeline I did was called. I publish it. Let me give you the link here. What's on? Let me. Come on. There we go. Here we go. I'll just give you the link. It's called A Timeline of Recent False Rape Cases. There's quite a lot there, but it's from February 2000 to March 2013. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 2012. Well, only for 2012. There's one complete year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 9, including Gamble. And I've had quite a lot since then. Shortly after I got kicked off Digital Journal, I was headhunted for a publication called The Latest News. This was two guys in Eastern Europe, great guys. They were the domain thelatestnews.com was registered in 1997, but they appeared to bought it only recently. And I'd had some interaction with them on Digital Journal. I won't say how, but they sort of headhunted me. And I recruited a couple of other people, about 3 or 4 other people actually to write for it, including my colleague Mark Taha did the occasional review. But they couldn't make in the end they couldn't make it pay. But between early 2015 and about February or March of 2016, I published over 400 articles. All the articles on my main website, by the way. Great guys. I total a free hand. I did. So they saw me as chief editor. I didn't really edit stuff. I'd sort of do I'd sub stuff, correct stuff. They spoke very well. They wrote very good English, so I presume they spoke it as well. And I published quite a lot of articles. What's this one here? This is oh yes. Now what happened was, put this up. Where is it? Oh yes, this is my first. This is my second time around, really. This is the one I did on the latest news. This is Guess Who Wasn't Raped Last Year, and it was published January 2nd, 2016. While I was at some point. Oh dear, what's happened here? Yeah. While I was at some point, while I was working that, or shortly afterwards, I decided I read. There was a Judge David Bryant who, in about 2005 or 6, called for a register forced rape accusers. And I found a domain called registerher.com or registerher something, which hasn't been much used, and the false rape blogspot. I thought, why not do a big timeline? I thought must be thousands and thousands, but either you do what you can. So I started work on the International False Rape Timeline, and it was as long ago as August 1989, Judge David Bryant calls for registered false rape accusers. It was following a collapse of a trial of a man at Teesside Crown Court, accused of raping a 16-year-old girl. So I came to I did the false rape timeline. Went online on June the 13th, 2016, with about 1,900 entries. There are now a shade over 4,000, and quite a lot of lots of. I try to link to everything, to every allegation, and really with the so-called Me Too era and nonsense like that, it's. Anyone who tells me that false rape allegations are rare, extremely rare, in that version, it's just complete nonsense. I'm not going to discuss rape statistics in any depth here, but I'll do a separate video on that. Any of you, any questions you'd like to ask, feel free. Feel free to post. I'm very disappointed. I thought it'd be more tonight. I'm not disappointed in you, but people didn't come. Yeah, I will make a dedicated video on false rape statistics. But it's the idea that the false rape allegations are rare is complete nonsense. The basis for believing this is is for what is what, you know, it's absolutely absurd. And what we're seeing with so-called Me Too is we're seeing yet another attack on due process. You know, if women have been sexually assaulted, even they've been sexually harassed, properly sexually harassed, you know, fair enough. But these are matters for the police, or for, you know, for so-called sexual harassment, for you know, internal matters with companies. But a lot of this is, if you speak to men who work with women, I mean, fortunate, by and large, I haven't worked with women. Well, I rub shoulders with women in the library and such, but I mean, that's hardly counts, does it? But men who work with women on an equal footing in offices, where maybe closed offices, well, I mean, it's complete. The whole sexual harassment stuff is complete nonsense. What we're seeing now is an attack on due process, a bigger attack on due process. I'd like to talk a bit about the future of the Foresight timeline. I want to expand it. So because my domain's come up for renewal in 2020, and I'm going to register then, if I'm still alive, which is not guaranteed. I'm going to register foresight.org. And so it'll be a separate. At the moment, it's piggybacking on my main website. I want it to be a separate domain. So I'm looking at about $2,000 for that. I've got some money towards it. Well, I could do it tomorrow actually, but I need to raise money for that. I mean, we could all do with raising money, but what I would like to see is people submitting me foreign, when I say foreign, not foresight cases from countries in which English is not a regular language. I mean, most of them come from most of the timeline comes from the British Isles, from North America and Australia, Australasia. India has a fabulous English language press. But I've only got two from Poland. I had a guy from Poland the other night said he wants he sort of, pardon me, I do beg your pardon. Guy from Poland, he said he got sort of half promised he'll send me some stuff. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of reports, there will be a report of a rape or an alleged rape which isn't followed up, and when I actually check it out, it didn't happen. I'll give you an example here. This is quite recent. I'm very grateful to the press officer for the Metropolitan Police who give me. Where's it gone? One of the press officers of the Metropolitan Police. Now this is fairly typical. On June the 17th, 2000, a girl was allegedly raped in Erith, South London. This is file 3880. Well, it's at June the 17th, 2000 on the timeline. It's in a separate page, a link to it. There don't appear to have been any press reports, although there was some sort of appeal, and four men come forward. She claimed to have been, she was in a club called Club Extreme. She claimed to have been sexually assaulted in there, indecently assaulted by two men. She came out and she was raped by two other men, dragged off by two other men and raped. Was it four? From Marshall Street, raped by two others, two men, what other people appear to watch. And it's a sort of story which could be true, but you know, anytime an allegation, it doesn't matter if it's rape or anything else, but anytime something is so bizarre, sounds so bizarre and unlikely, you have to check it out, because it may be true, but but very often it isn't. And there was absolutely no fault. There was an appeal in January 2001. These guys presented themselves to the police, and there's no further reporting. And I chased it up, and the message I got was, hello, all 4 men previously bailed were released with no further action following advice from the CPS in May 2001. Regards, and I won't give the guy's name, but he's very helpful. So there are lots of things like that. I found I was doing some research on, and I found, I don't want to give too much detail because I promised I wouldn't, but there was a regional newspaper, and there were 2 reports of 2 rapes meant to have happened in the same place, the same provincial town, stroke city, the same day. One of them was like in the small hours, and the other sounded really bizarre. It involved an older woman who said she was raped by 2 men, one black, one white. I couldn't find any follow-ups. I contacted the press office, and the woman who got back to me said that, well, she didn't exactly swear me to secrecy, but she said this is not for public consumption. The issue of the 2 men attacking the older woman, there had been no further developments, no action. And the other one, the young woman, it was an issue of consent. There was no further action taken. It was an issue of consent. So what happened there? What does happen is women go out, they get tanked up. Well, they drink, they smoke funny substances. They cop off with men they don't know, and then for whatever reason they make false rape allegations. I've got one here. This is one I can understand. I can't remember the name now. It's from fairly. Where is it? This is where is it? I remember her name. Yeah, this is you'll find this on the timeline too. A woman named Karen Farmer. She's 35 years old, single. She's an old maid. She's quite a bit younger than me, but she's an old maid. She meets a guy through a dating site. He's about 12 years younger than her, and he's unemployed. So they go out for the date, and guess who pays for the meal or whatever, probably the drinks as well. They get on the train together. They have sex on the train. And then he's thanks for the ride, thanks for the meal, ta-ta. Now you can understand. It doesn't justify it, but you can understand a woman under those circumstances seeking to punish a guy. And this one is even more deserving. This is a bloke called Luke Entwistle. This was October 2013. He picked up a woman in a bar, or a public bar. They went to a cemetery. They had sex. And then he walked off with a handbag and a mobile phone. So she contacted the police, phoned them with a different phone, I suppose, and claimed to have been raped and robbed. He was arrested when he was held on remand. When the case comes up to court, the rape case is dropped. You can imagine. You know, I'm not condoning what she did. I'm certainly not condoning what he did. But you can imagine a woman under those circumstances crying rape because she feels like she's been taken for a ride. She's been used. Okay, I mean, obviously she would enjoy it or thought she would enjoy the sex herself. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone. But blokes who behave like this, they really deserve what they get. But anyway, that's the background to the timeline. Hopefully, we'll have some more people. Any of you watching this or anybody else who watches it later, let me know if you want this held at a different time. I'm holding it on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. This is now Friday at 10 p.m. London time. I'll be amenable to doing 2 of these a week. If somebody from, I've got one guy, a regular correspondent in Australia who can't log in this time of night. But if any of you want to hold this at a later a different time, let me know. And any of you want to send me any material, anything at all, any older stuff, you know, I mean, stuff from the local press, stuff I want to come across, be very much appreciated. But anyway, that's the how the international force came to set up the international force rape timeline. I'm going to be adding some more, if not tonight, then tomorrow, about 5 or 6 cases. There's a couple of big ones. There was one yesterday actually from London, an American woman called Nordquist, who she's looking at a very heavy sentence for what she was getting up to. There's another one from a woman who falsely accused a man of rape. She's got, I think, 18 months. That was on the BBC website today. But anyway, I think nobody got any questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Perhaps you can invite a few people next time. I'm going to persist with this. We persist with this live stream because I think it's worthwhile, and I'll be putting the videos on the Internet Archive as well as on YouTube. So anyway, thank you for coming, and as things stand, there will be another live stream at 10 p.m. Next Friday, London time, during which I'll be discussing false rape statistics